I am joined now by Daniel Tickle, one of the 16 players competing for the $3,000 Webcam Championship this upcoming Saturday. Um, Daniel, you qualified with King Ghidorah, is that correct?
Yep, that was me.
Perfect. Well, to get started, how did you get into Universes? How long have you been playing?
So I had a friend of mine who tried to get me and a few of us here started back. It was Cowboy Bebop, the original Cowboy Bebop, around that time frame. But we had heard some inklings of some changes in UFS at that point because it had not actually transitioned over. We decided we were going to wait until it changed over to Universus. We actually that year caught the original demo of the Bakugo and Deku at Gen Con. I still have some of those cards floating around, and when MHA set one dropped, we decided to go ahead and change over. The card game that we used to play died by that point, so we had something we needed to do.
What was the card game that died?
Legend of the Five Rings. Me and a couple of my friends actually run what I would argue is the best, if not still the oldest, Legend of the Five Rings podcast. And uh, we had played the original game, and then it got transferred over to Fantasy Flight, and they made a new game, and that game eventually died. And we had no card game at that point in a year or two, so we decided to pick up Universus.
Have you thought about doing switching your taking your original podcast buddies and switching over to Universes content?
So, we still run the podcast because Legend of the Five Rings is more than just a card game. It was a role playing game. It was a miniatures game. Have you ever heard of the game before?
I've never heard of it.
It is basically magical samurai. Imagine things like Seven Samurai, but set in a fictitious world um, with magic and demons and things like that. It's actually really interesting. The role playing game is still going on, and one of my friends is a an author and contributor to the franchise, which is why we're one of the reasons why we do the podcast is to leverage his expertise. So I have a few videos up for Universes on my own channel, but I need to just make more content, like everything, right?
Yeah, that is right. You did a King Ghidorah deck profile, right?
I've done a few things, a King Ghidorah deck profile and Devil Gen, and even
Hmm.
tried a short. So yeah, I've done a handful of videos. I just need to put out more.
Right. Okay, give us your since you've been playing your favorite Universes character and your favorite Universes attack. They don't have to be related, but they can be.
Honestly, I think at the moment King Ghidorah has been my favorite. It's Overhaul is a close second. I like playing characters that subvert the normal play patterns. Overhaul plays from the stage. King Ghidorah plays from his discard pile. Um, Sort of tying into King Ghidorah, though, I think my favorite attack at the moment is True 100% Unleashed. It does so much, especially in him. It's an omni block. It's a punishing attack. It's it's from a great character in a great anime.
Yeah, and you can just sit back, as your opponent makes their armor the wolf bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you just, yeah, I'll block that.
I'll block. Yeah. Especially going in, well, with this past Atlanta, but going into a meta where people are slinging 13 speed, 14 damage attacks, or if they don't have the ability to cancel the reaction, here's a 20 speed Fajin Flurry, things like that. Just being able to guarantee a block is really powerful.
Yeah, true 100%. Probably one of the cleanest Fajin answers that we have. Give us your hottest universes take, something that everybody watching this will immediately be upset once you say it.
All right, combined firepower is perfectly fine. So, I think Twisting Azure Inferno was the real problem. It allowed you to get a lot of damage off of combined firepower unexpectedly. Combined firepower, in and of itself, in isolation, it's perfectly fine. It has a very random damage output. It can block things from the discard pile, but it's got a bad block modifier. So in isolation, the card is perfectly fine. I think that there may be some concerning play patterns with some other, a whole bunch of cards at the same time. It's not just combined firepower, but I think combined firepower is a perfectly fine card. I'm biased
Okay.
since I play King Ghidorah, um, but I do think the card is all right. I think Twisting Azure was probably the big problem there.
All right. Someone else's hot take was that Twisting Azure was perfectly fine and Firepower was the real problem. So now we have some dueling hot
Yes.
takes here. What's an IP that if you were designing universes, they would add?
Going back to original question, I would honestly add Legend of the Five Rings. So it's owned by Asmodee at this point, and UVS does have a working relationship with Asmodee, and the setting would actually fit really well. Our podcast, we actually did an April Fool's episode where we pretended that UVS had picked up the IP. Um, and the way the setting works is you have a bunch of great clans that control the empire, and each one is controlled by a champion. And there's a lot of conflicts that are resolved by dueling. So you've got a lot of one-on-one combat with special maneuvers and unique weaponry. So you could take some of these characters, which have decades of lore behind them, and introduce them in the game. You'd be able to fit it really easily into like a Challenger series, for instance.
Mhm.
And you'd be able to pull in fans who have 20 plus years of fanship. You'd be able to pull in a lot of people who would pick it up just to play the Challenger decks, even if they did nothing else. I think it would actually be a spectacular addition. Don't think it'll ever happen, but I do think it would be a spectacular addition. It would fit really well with the concept.
And you said Five Rings used to have a card game component, but now it doesn't.
So the original card game is a contemporary was a contemporary of Magic the Gathering. It came out in like 1998 or so.
Okay.
And then it was AEG, the Alderac Entertainment Group, is the company that originally owned it. It was even owned by WotC for a time when WotC bought L5R before selling it back to AEG. About I don't even know how many years it was at this point. Probably 8 years or so ago, I think it was around 2016, if I'm remembering roughly. AEG sold it off to Fantasy Flight. They didn't continue the game, but they created a new version of L5R in the LCG format, the living card game where everything was fixed. And that ended up dying off as well. So at this point, we have um, role playing games in L5R. There's a whole bunch of novels. There's a full imprint, and they're doing a whole bunch of novels for L5R. Um, but there's currently no card game part of it. People still play the original card game, but there's no current card game. It's unfortunate.
Okay, I see. So it's like a set of lore, but there was tons of different games set around it. It wasn't like all one cohesive game. Like you weren't playing a role
Yeah,
playing game and a card game at the same time.
no, no. So it started off as a card game, and then people loved the universe so much that they created an RPG based off of it. And then people
Okay.
loved all of this so much they created a miniatures war game based off of it called Clan Wars. They even had an expansion for Disc Wars and things like that. So yeah, it's a big overarching RP. It's one of the oldest gaming IPs out there.
I say they bring it in and they just have you design the set. They make it
Hey,
a
I'd do it with me and my fellow co-host. We've got the lore expertise.
Mhm. Okay, if you were to stop playing Universes, it will be because of what?
Money. Um, it's the more product they put out, the more expensive it gets. It was a lot
Mhm.
easier to manage. Well, I'm a completionist, so I not a full completionist. I generally buy at least a play set of all preset decks, I buy a case of each set, and it gets expensive. So if you're putting 4, 5, 6 sets out a year, let's be honest. The Star Trek decks, they're a set on their own. They may be fixed, but they're still a
Hmm.
set of cards. Um,
And if you want those
they-
duplers, if you want 50 duplers, you got to buy 10 Teddy
I'm
decks.
I'm crossing my fingers that they put duplers up on Redemption. Just let us buy as much
Hmm.
as we want. I don't even need them to be foiled. Just let me buy them. It's like I've got thousands of points. Just let me spend them on duplers.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm a completionist, and at least if we have more years like 2024, it's like I got to pull back on how much product I'm buying. 2025 looks to be a little slower, fewer challenger decks at least from
Yeah,
what we're seeing.
if there's a lot of travel as well. I love travel, um,
Hmm.
but the more product they have releasing, the less of my budget can go into traveling to places. So.
Right. Well, who are you going to? Are you going to be playing King Ghidorah for this upcoming webcam championship? And then, what character do you think will win it if it's not King Ghidorah?
Yeah, I'm bringing King Ghidorah back. I think AOT2 added some really interesting cards for the deck, so we'll see how that plays out. I think King Ghidorah does have a decent shot at anyone on the meta at the moment. That being said, if there's no errata that takes place, I think Bert 2 is a big problem. I can definitely see someone playing Bert 2 winning it. If not him, Ymir. Ymir can do crazy damage output, and once you get up to the point of being able to bring every attack above 10 damage, it just takes a few attacks to take King Ghidorah down. Um, Also, Recovery Girl. Last Chance Rescue Recovery Girl it's obscene. If I'd gotten some more practice in, I actually might have brought that deck instead. I just don't have as much practice playing Recovery Girl, but I think the with the current things, you can be really aggressive. You can kill people with Recovery Girl and still be nigh unkillable. It's insane. No, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think everybody's thankful that you're not playing Recovery Girl for,
Yeah, no,
for viewing the
I
event.
like. I've got too much invested in King Ghidorah, and it's the best I've done with it so far. The only other character I've come close to playing as well is Overhaul, where
Mm.
I made top four at Rochester back then. But yeah, King
Yeah,
Ghidorah,
that was
hopefully to win it
Rochester
all.
last. That was back when they were doing provisionals, right? The Rochester provisional last year.
Yep, I made top four. Lost to Jacob on cam.
Nice. Yeah, he was Nomu at the time. That was
Yep.
when he won the event with Nomu.
No, he ended up losing out to was it Bromley?
Oh, I think it was Kevin. I think it was Kevin.
Yes, it was Kevin. Yeah,
Mm.
he lost to Kevin in top two. Yep.
Well, perfect. If you want to root Daniel and King Ghidorah on, it's Saturday, December 7th from 10 a.m. Central Time to about 7 p.m. Central Time, probably. We got 5 rounds of Swiss, and then the top four will duke it out. $3,000 total for the prize pool. Daniel, I'm thankful for you taking the time and joining me today.
Glad to be here.